photograph and he ain't got permission. By the way, we got to talk to Mike because I get a stick. Hello, talk to you person. Yeah, I get a copy of this. It goes to my archivist. Yeah. Anyway, let's go.
Woo!
Sit down.
Because this is like, what's my line? And I think the winner is.
What do you want to know?
Why don't we just take a question? Why don't we just talk about Renaissance archaeological history? Why don't we talk about this? Everybody's got the junkers. Yeah, that wasn't like one of the last ones that he tells us what his mythology was. We need to from the border. Sadly, the studio hit the hell out of it. They were afraid of a lot of the religious stuff. And then Mel Gibson came out with the passion after that. And then Brian Halligan, the director, I said, "Don't we try to movie with some I.S.A. bells?" And he suspected Bell, and I don't trust Bell, but the thing is that, yeah, because after the passion, anybody can talk about Jews and Christians and Romans and whatever like that. But during the TV movie, you know, we were talking about with scene together that was just culture that the kid had, right? I was telling him he doesn't, like the Cardinal said, you think that Jesus was some peacenik, you know, riding into Jerusalem waving a John Lennon sign. And it's a great speech written by Brian. You know, he was a hard ass from Galilee, and he went up against a big dog. I don't know if any of you know Roman history at all, but you know, Rome is working.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Rome, guys, we are one exercise of Hellenism in the United States. Do you know that? Yeah. Does anybody know? Okay, so there's this guy that everybody wants to be. Everybody wants to be. From Julius Caesar to George Patton to Dwight D. Eisenhower to whatever. Alexander the Great. Ever heard of that guy? Yeah. Okay. Alexander the Great. People think he conquered half the world. No, he didn't conquer it at all. He traveled half the world spreading the ideology of the art, the architecture, the philosophy, the plays, the writings, the poetry, the history, the sculpture, the art of Greece, classical Greece, throughout the world. He spread it. He was more interested in educating. The young was a tough guy. He was also a soldier and fighter. But he was more interested in educating, spreading culture than he was in conquering. You know, in those days, people conquered. You disseminated people, or you killed them or enslaved them. You don't hear of Alexander enslaving anybody. He spread it through Jerusalem. Later on, the fundamentalist Jews hated him for that. Syrians hated him for it. Everybody, Egyptians later hated him for it. But essentially, everybody absorbed it. You would have the architecture of Jerusalem. You would have today, modern, all the way to Gibraltar or the Washington, D.C. without Alexander spreading that stuff. And what happens is that Rome is just one big exercise in Hellenism. That's all it is. They got their own things. They invent the arch, and they invent concrete, which is really fast building. But they do the one thing that Alexander tries to do, and he can't get done. And Rome does it. And what do you think that is? Rome, no. Rome was not interested in conquering either. Rome conquered, but for what? Why did Rome conquer? What do they want?
Money.
What?
Civilization.
Civilization, but what does civilization give them?
Money.
Money! Business! Yeah, capitalism, man. Look, in the age of biggest from London all the way to the eastern side of Turkey, all the way to North Africa. You know, partly simply because I live in Italy, but there's not enough guineas to go around. People know that Italians ran all that? No. Jews ran Judea, Syrians ran Syria, Egyptians ran Egypt, the Gauls ran France, and they let you run it. Just so they got the biz. And that's what Alexander wanted to do, but But as soon as Alexander dies, it gets divided up into three generals. They fight each other. And once again, they're back into the good news about Greece. They invented an independent city-state called the Polis. Bad news about Greece. They invented a city-state called the Polis.
Yeah, right.
And none of those polises would get along until Alexander's dad, who's the thug at the back of the class. You know these guys? You know the guy at the back of the class? Like, he's the thug, but he wants to be the cool guys in the front. Right? There's a guy in my kids' class. My kid's one of the smarty pants cool guys. There's a guy who wants in. You know, he wants to join him, and he's a thug. And my kid Teddy goes, I don't know how to, he's not really nice, but he really wants to be part of it. That's Alexander's dad. Philip II of Macedonia. He wants to be with the cool guys. Guess who he hires? What? Guess who he hires to teach his kids?
Socrates.
No.
Aristotle.
Aristotle. Who said Aristotle? Raise your hand. Very good. Two put down. This is like hiring. Like, you think we only know Aristotle now? No. Aristotle is as famous as Einstein is in his day. He's written on everything from poetic structure to science to cosmos to ideas of identity. Right? And this thug at the back of the class says, I'm going to teach you smarty pants guys something. I'm going to get Einstein to come and teach my kid. And he goes, that's right. He goes and teaches him for 8 years. So when you got a guy who's good looking at Alexander, we know he's good looking from his portraiture. And is smart about war, as his dad taught him. And then he's got Aristotle teaching him about everything from science down to how to behave in a court. What do you got? You got a genius, basically. And that's what he tried to do. He tried to, spread this around. And he hoped it would last, but it didn't last because they got the fights. Then Rome comes along, and Rome spreads it around. And Rome, we are one exercise in Hellenism. Now, Harry, right there, I'm going to give you something else. The guy who produced Robocop, Mike Medavoy, is head of Orion Studios, takes me as a gift. There's my Coca-Cola. Well, did not have a Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
You just been five.
Okay, he's old enough to pay attention.
I keep trying to tell him that.
Mike Medavoy invites me to go to UCLA before I went to UCLA grad school. Just starting up Robocop, and one guy from the Politburo, who's essentially absconding from the United States. He's giving lectures. Yeltsin is now the premier. Iron Curtain has fallen. This guy's giving a lecture to 250 people. I'll never forget it. The guy says Russia essentially does not work in a free market economy. We always look for them to join a free market economy. Poland works in one. Yugoslavia works in one when it broke apart. Romania does. The Balkan countries do. And this guy says we don't work in a free market economy because we've never been given. In management, like if you own a grocery store or you're managing a grocery store, like all of a sudden you got ideas about what to put in the window? No. Russia's been told what to put in the window. The big guns under the Tsar, the big guns under Stalin told you what to do all the time. There was no mid-market invention. People sit on their hands, they walk on eggshells. Now there's a little bit more money, so it's going. But you know what this guy said? Why market economy does not work in Russia? Because there's no invention in the middle class market, management. But why is that? We just talked about it. Guess what they didn't have? This blew my mind. They didn't have Rome, man. They didn't have the idea of free trade and movement and roads, and you get this and that, and not shopping retail, trading it. And Rome did. Rome taught the world how to do international trade. And Rome wanted you to make money. When you hear about slaves in Rome itself, Slaves, yes, were conquered peoples that were taken as manservants, but essentially slaves in Rome, when you read about Rome itself, are people, are your assistants, are your maids, are your secretaries, and so forth. And most of them within 2 years are free. And they all have to read, because your house servant may be Greek, captured from some Greek fight in Corinth, but they got to go down and do this grocery shopping. They got to bring the news home from the forum. Everybody was literate. And once in a while you read of slaves on the hinterlands. Yes, you had to do the mining and the hard work and so forth. Even gladiators were considered slaves, but they could buy their own freedom. They could buy their own freedom. So there was a movable market economy in Rome that basically Rome wanted, and Rome gets corrupt, and Rome gets like essentially inflation kills it, so does disease and so forth. But Rome wanted you to make money. They wanted the middle class to make money. It was not the 2%er idea. As long as you were making money, they were making money. You with that? You see that? Mm-hmm. And subsequently, like, people said, no, they were oppressive. No, man, they were oppressive if you messed with them. Hear me loud and clear. They were the big dog. And the big dog would put its paw on your neck if they smelled anything other than free market economy. They did not want rebellion. If there was any kind of scent of rebellion in any of their territories, who do you think the first person they would call up and fire?
You.
The governor. They wouldn't go to the rebellion. They'd call up the governor and go, what is going on there, man? Like, deal with that. And we don't mean necessarily oppressive. If you have to negotiate it, put it out, or you're back. So these governors didn't want to, like, you know, stomp on anybody. If they stomped on us, because there was always a rebellion. 3 rebellions in Sicily. Spartacus. Spartacus is one of the big slave rebellions. Anybody got any questions at this point? Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like talking to Fox out.
Tell me what it's about, because I don't know.
You know, it's comedic, but it's charming. What's your feeling about your work in that movie?
That's a great question. I had a ball doing that movie. I have no idea what it's about when those cats hired me and asked me to do it. I infused it with all the EIDO and the swords and stuff and the guns and because that's essentially what I grew up in, and the stand of it. But you know, 2 of my longtime buddies, Jeff Goldblum and Christopher Lloyd, still buddies to this day. When we went out to dinner with Lloyd next week. I'm going to have dinner with Goldblum in Florence, Italy. He just left my home on the Amalfi Coast. So those guys are longtime buddies. But you know, the funny thing is that I don't know what the movie's about. And nobody in the movie knows what the movie is.
Still great.
And it was inducted into the sort of film archives at Lincoln Center. We all put on tuxedos, and Goldblum and Lloyd couldn't make it, so me and Lithgow went. And I wish Clancy would have been there, or Lewis, somebody, or Helen. But me and Lithgow went. And who steps forward to conduct it? Kevin Smith. And Kevin Smith's, we're all tuxedos, and he's in the New York Rangers. And he talks about it for 30 minutes, and he starts talking about the social history in it, and the racism in it, and the bounce of like Zen philosophy. And this guy keeps turning to I didn't know that. During the whole time, and then Lithgow revealed that he got his Italian Mussolini accent from the assistant costume designer. Because he could not bring up a good accent, and he heard this guy when he was getting fitted for a costume in Buckaroo, and he had the guy record all the lines for him, and he revealed that. But we sat there and said, and Kevin said, look, man, you don't know, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you know what it's about. It's just air. It's just Zen. It's just, you know, Dennis Haysbert says it's his favorite movie and it's about love. And I'm on a golf course with him. He said, you didn't know that? I said, yeah, I know it's about love. I know it's about this but Dennis, we don't know what it is. And then finally, like Dennis said, who cares what it's about? action movie? Yeah. A science fiction movie? Yeah. Is it like a comedy? Yeah. But what it really, we don't know. It's like, I'm so proud to be in something I don't understand. So. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes. Oh, thank you. I'd like to be acquainted with Plato.
For you, with your degree, who do you think was the best or most efficient Roman emperor and why?
Hi, yeah, the best. Look, there's some great, efficient, wonderful executive leaders in the Roman Empire. And you can start with Augustus, who was adored and really got a lot of political savvy and clout and walks out among them. And then there's some like crazy people, right, that inherit it. I wouldn't want to have lunch with any of them.
Now you Claudius?
Yeah. Claudius had 35 senators put together. I mean, as good as he was.
I want to talk about the pumpkinification of Claudius.
I don't know, man. Claudius is a nice dude, man. It's like, Claudius all of a sudden, if you got on the wrong side of him or he smelled somebody, he has Messalina put down. I mean, the guy's like, I tell you, the guy that you could get the straight shot from is Vespasian. Vespasian is the guy that's, after Nero. Nero for 3 years is a really good emperor. And then his mother gets into the picture. Don't let your mother into your profession. I mean, really, my mother lives in my head. There's a saying in Naples, "C'è la vita durante la mamma e dopo la mamma allora," which means there's life during, no matter what you thought of your mother, no matter how close or much you hated your mother or loved your mother, there's life during your mother's life and life after mother. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Okay? So I'm tight with my dad. My mother and I have a very conflicted relationship. It's great. She's an artist, I'm an artist, but my mother lives in my head. My dad, once in a while, I relate to her, but my mother, I'd seen my mother in 2 years. I'd fly her to Venice, Italy to spend Christmas with me and a bunch of people. 2 years I'd seen her. She's from New York, grew up in New York, loud, aggressive, and one of the great comments, I was a jazz piano player. Threw my best friend out of the house for using the N-word when I was 14. He's an activist. You did not cross the line and marginalize people with my mother. And this was like way before it was cool. This is in the South. This is in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, man. So my mother would say, she would talk like that. She was in the next room all her life. And somebody say, "Excuse me, are you Jewish?" "We're all Jews, babe." That was a standard answer. So about 6 years old, I'm saying, "Mom, what are you saying? Why would you?" She says, "You don't know. There's 250,000 dispersed by the Syrians and 600. You don't know. How do you know what you are?" And we don't know what we are. Now we got genetic things, right? In any case, my mom got off a plane. And I'd seen her, and I said, Mom, what's with your hair? Did you get a haircut?" First thing out of her mouth. "No, hey, honey, no. She looks at the hair, man. That's Mom. Mom's in my head, and there is life during mother and life after mother, man. And that's the way it goes. That's what they say in Naples.
Does that mean you hate Titus as much as the Jewish people do?
Here's the thing with Titus. Titus has an affair with Berenice, who is the queen of Judea. He doesn't want to, listen, I don't want to let him off the hook, but there's a whole play about him. He grows up in Judea. He grows up with the Jews. When Masada starts and Nero's still emperor, and he goes making this circular thing, Vespasian says, "You got to give it up. You got to give it up." And then the zealots essentially go into Holy Holies and say no. And Ben Zakkai, this is some Jewish history for you, for everybody who's Jewish out there. Ben Zakkai, the high priest, says, "Hey, we have nothing to do with this. Let us take Torah out of here." Vespasian says, "Sure, but you got to give up these zealots. These 2,000 guys that are like, killing them, because we're not going to take it." Right. So Ben Zakkai goes down to Yavneh. He starts what we call now Talmudic Judaism, Mishnah Judaism, debatable Judaism. Judaism is just as modern as Christianity, by the way, for all you Jews who don't understand that. I'm gonna get blowback from fundamentalism. But the old oak tree of Judaism is dead when that temple goes down.
It's just, I really love the story of the alleged mosquito that went up Titus's brain.
Yeah, we don't know about that. That's like, there could be total books. But the most important thing is that, the most important thing to know is that Vespasian is called back to Rome because Nero is dead as a rebellion. He leaves it in the hands of Titus. Titus does not want to take down the Holy of Holies. His younger brother Domitian, a bad dude, who punishes Rome for about 18 years, a bad guy, worse than Nero, worse than Caligula, worse than all of them, is pouring the poison into his father. He's a student, the younger brother. The older brother is like a savant, a warrior, a student, the younger brother is a student. He tells his dad, hey, he's in love with the queen of the Jews. He's never going to take down that temple. He's never going to do it. And finally, a guy named, I think it's Lucianus, has to go and tell Titus, if you don't take it down, your brother is poisoning your dad's ear. He thinks you're a traitor. And Titus finally has to take it down, and they got the hearts of Titus. There's a temple of bread and menorah and so forth, that if you're true Orthodox, you're not allowed to look upon it because it is the suppressor of Judaism, and it's right there in the Forum. But Jewish scholars look at it all the time. And so do Christian and Muslim scholars and so forth. I'm for the looking at ancient Rome with historical eyes, not religious eyes. So that, anybody else? Yes.
You go.
How do you bring your knowledge of history and acting in theater together? How does that come together?
No, Eli Kazan said it, and when I became a member of the Actors Studio, the great Eli Kazan, the guy who discovered Warren Beatty, James Dean, Marlon Brando, on and on. Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, the guy who started naturalistic cinema, any of the films that you guys like right now. It doesn't matter whether it's on the waterfront to Splendor in the Grass, doesn't matter, or all the plays he did. But he said anybody here who is not expanding their life because of their career, which actors are notoriously not doing, they don't want to leave New York because they're going to get an audition, which is what I was doing. I got news for you. Your work is about everything except your career. Your work is about filling your life up with experience. And if you're not taking dance class, you're not traveling, you're not learning a new language, you're not looking at this, you're not going here and going there, you are dying inside. You are sitting around waiting for your career and not your work, because your work is about self-expression. And what have you got to express if you're not filling your life up with something? And man, that's when I started changing, right there, when I heard that lecture from him. So I just use it all, I mean, you can't do the thing I just did for Netflix and start talking about the world and say things like you're harshing my mellow, man. Right? Have you guys seen the Netflix thing?
Gathering of Curiosity?
See, revealing. I would never be able to play that without our history. And Panos Cosmatos, the director, his dad, George Cosmatos, did a film for in Rome with Dino De Laurentiis, Aurelio De Laurentiis. And that's what got me into ancient Rome, is his dad. His dad started feeding me about this guy did this, go to the Colosseum, see that, whatever. And I was 4 months in Rome, thanks to his dad. So it's like, it works it. It works it. You're playing a billionaire sort of anthropologist, paleontographer guy. How are you going to play that guy unless you know a little bit about what you're talking about? I know a little bit about what I'm talking about, not a whole lot. Next. Orange shirt, yellow basket.
How, anything you can tell us about the upcoming Robocop game in which you reprise your role?
I have to do more voiceovers on that on Monday, and so you shall be able to see that later on. I cannot.
Yeah.
Okay, I got
awesome.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, as I don't know, man. They got a list of stuff they don't send out. I gotta do it. And I find out what the game is. They make the game around your voice.
All right.
Yeah. Some people think that they just do the game and then you gotta like lip sync to it. No, they write it out like a screenplay, and then you gotta do the thing. 10 minutes. No, longer than that. Sorry. Did you already ask a question? That might just play into. Let's do it.
Have you ever turned down for roles related with Reddit?
You know, I turned down 3 roles with Tony Scott, the great Tony Scott, who actually jumped off a bridge. I turned down the one with David Bowie and the other one with Jeff Bridges. But I had other offers, you know, and he was a great guy. And then he had me meet him. He had his office not far from my house. He said, let's meet, talk about this movie, the last thing, for a cigar. I said, sure, what time do you meet? He says, can you meet at 6 o'clock in the morning? A cigar at 6 o'clock in the morning? I don't know. I had Tony Scott smoked 10 cigars a day, and I had a cigar. We talked about the movie. The movie never happened, and I'm sad it didn't, but I regret not making a movie with him. I really loved it. Turning down a movie, no. There was one movie that was me and a guy were up for it. The other guy got it. Then I saw the movie, and he was so brilliant that I thought, no, man, I could have never done that. And I'm glad he got the part. And it was the Deer Hunter. John Savage is rolling the Deer Hunter. You ever seen it?
Oh,
Yeah, the John Savage was unbelievable. So was Chris Walken and De Niro and everybody else. And Dick Sparrow. Yeah, okay. I gotta get in a sec. Yes, sir. Ghostbusters.
An underrated film I've always found in your career was definitely Leviathan.
Love it.
So I was wondering, like, what was the experience like making that kind of film with such a cast that you had?
Well, that was with George Cosmatos, and that was what, and Dino wanted to make it in Wilmington because he had a new studio, and George wanted to make it in Rome. Okay, Wilmington's nice, but Rome? Wilmington, Rome, Wilmington, Rome. So it was a ball to make it. It introduced me, like I say, to Roman art and architecture and history of Rome, thanks to George and thanks to a lot of people there. I met Corey Brennan at Rutgers, Eddie Jimenez at Rutgers, a lot of other people who got me into Roman architecture. It was just a blast doing it, man. I remember more hanging out with the cast and crew, walking around Rome, than I knew about making a movie. But the movie was fun. Great cast. Okay, yes.
Having worked in as many genres as you have, is there anything left that you like still want to maybe work in?
Well, you know, my first thing is jazz. I'm a jazz trumpet player, and I got a sextet, and COVID shut us down. We're going to come back and play on December 3rd at a usual venue in Beverly Hills. And that genre is something I always want to work in, and I always miss working in this. Is playing music. A highly mediocre jazz trumpet player made a lot better surrounded by a whole lot of studio guys who love me and make me look good. So that's the only genre I missed. I mean, I'm a woman, so I've gotten, you know, my high doing all that stuff, but music is the thing. Music is my real only passion. Okay, I'm going to take 2 more questions. Yeah.
So, my sister went to Syracuse University.
Yikes.
Taught there. What did any of the students, their opinions, their values when you were the teacher, or opinions of them being affected by your career? Do you think the students thought, no, right, when you get back to
I'll tell you 3 things about Syracuse University. First of all, I got to do this very special program, a master's degree, that they set up, the Rab Hatfield set up 25, 30 years ago, and they take 6 students from around the world. You can do the whole master's degree in Florence. Got it? The whole thing in Florence. You got to spend 21 days in the campus of origin by federal law, so I had to go write a paper on the Syracuse University campus. Once I got to Syracuse University campus, I thought, thank God I did not have to go there. Because that's like a Russian prison, man. Have you ever spent a winter in Syracuse? But I'm not talking about I'm not talking about the gray like there is in Vancouver or Seattle. That thing sits on you. Like, it's oppressive. It looks like it's about 20 feet high. That fog and that ugly gray, day after day after day. Oh man, it's horrible. But then I just want to tell you, so I went to Florence. I thought it would be easy. No, it's not easy. Immediately, the 5 other grad students who were there, all from, you know, Brown and Harvard and New York, looked at me like, I got in a pass because I spoke fluent Italian and I knew about the art, and I'd taken a 10-week course, and they figured that I was a winner because my access to Italian and to the art was much more street level than their academic level, but they let me in. But the 5 people I went to school with hated me. And by the way, my graduate, this is not a name drop, but when I went to UCLA, my graduate advisor hated me for the same reason. She said, I'm going to have a problem with your age, with your gender, and your money. And the 5 kids at Syracuse resented me for the same thing. And I made the typical codependent kid
effort to try to get these 5, 21, 22, 23-year-old girls, two of them still are good friends now. They're academics, the rest of them, I don't know where they went. But I tried to get them to like me. Yeah. Try the dysfunction of trying to get 23-year-olds to like you. Yeah, take them to dinner, they want more. Yeah, and so finally I said to one of them, and one of them was wising off, and I just turned to her and I said, listen, I've had it with all of you, and I will make you cry. If you talk to me like that again, I'm older, smarter, and richer than you. And so cutting that boundary, they all got scared. One of them went to complain, of course, you know, and the complaint went nowhere, and they stopped talking to me, I got the work done. And then they came around a year later when we all had to really work. So, tough Syracuse stuff, man. Going to school in the East is harder than going to school in the West. Going to school in the West with Charles E. Young and people who set up universities and UC systems to help you. It's Charles E. Young's revolution at UCLA. They got all these computer centers, all these people to service, because his idea of a student was to help the student graduate. Not a do or die, throw him in the deep end, if he drowns, too bad. And that's what it is going to school in the East. But you know, kids will complain about it. I hear kids walking around UCLA campus. UCLA campus, like, how bad can that be? More people apply to UCLA anywhere in the world, 180,000, and yet they will go, you know, it's so hard to get to the library, and they get from my dorm to the, you know, but we didn't do that about 19-year-olds forever. Youth is wasted on the young, it is true. One more question, yes?
Some question, but you obviously have the energy of like 3 normal people to describe this, like good genetics, excellent food, yoga, you're vegetarian, you like drink bath blood, what's the deal?
Bath blood! No, thank God my mother had a lot of energy, my dad did too, you know. I wanted to quit Syracuse when I got there. Because I had to do all these undergrad audits, and I thought I'd just go do some classes and go down to my place in Southern Italy. No, man, I had to be a TA, I had to get on a bus with these 19, 20-year-olds, man. I had to herd them, I had to teach with no notes in front of the art. It was tough, 2 weeks into it, and by the way, academics have no social skills. Everybody knows this, right? You go and say nice class to somebody, they go, yeah. You know, there's no gratitude in academics, man. There's very little gratitude. Once in a while, people like lasers do, but most of them, let's face it, man, are tenured up idiots. You know, as far as people go. Yeah, the skills of their knowledge of their field, great. Handling people, no. They don't. And we all know that if you've been to grad school or college. But there's one. So I wanted to quit. My mother came. I stand on the Ponte Vecchio, most beautiful bridge in the world. And my mother said, I was standing with my wife, my fiance, my mother said, you don't quit anything. You don't quit. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? You're not shooting anything until June.